Tonight on The ReidOut.
I sent, along with three of my fellow chairs, a preservation letter to the Department of Homeland Security that has jurisdiction over the Secret Service days after January 6th, telling them to preserve all the records. And if they haven't, we want to know why.
The Secret Service saw everything involving Trump and Pence on January 6th and in the days leading up to it. Now, potentially critical text messages could be gone forever. So what happened? Also tonight, a pariah no more. President Biden's very controversial meeting with the Saudi crown prince accused of ordering the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. But we begin tonight with new questions for the Secret Service from the January 6th committee. Now, of the many wild revelations surrounding the January 6th attack, three of them involve the United States Secret Service. So first, there was the alleged altercation in an SUV after the former president's speech that day, recounted by former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson.
Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing."
Now, there's also the incident involving former Vice President Mike Pence. Shortly after he was escorted out of the Capitol by Secret Service to a waiting armored limo and reportedly worried they wouldn't let him stay to do his job. First revealed in the book I Alone Can Fix It, Pence was quoted as telling an agent, "If I get in that vehicle, you guys are taking off. I'm not getting in the car." Committee member Jamie Raskin has called those remarks the 6 most chilling words of this entire thing I've seen so far. Well, now there's a third bombshell, which could be relevant to thing 1 and thing 2. NBC News has learned that the Secret Service erased text messages from January 6th and the day before. The messages were erased after the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General requested communications related to the insurrection. Through a spokesman, the Secret Service denied the insinuation that the texts were maliciously deleted, adding, quote, "The Secret Service has been fully cooperating with the Inspector General in every respect," unquote. Well, today, all 9 members of the January 6th committee were briefed by DHS Inspector General Joseph Cuffari, who wrote to the House and Senate Homeland Security committees about the wiped text messages earlier this week. Committee Chairman Benny Thompson said the Inspector General indicated that the Secret Service had not been fully cooperating with them. Meanwhile, the question of what might be lost in those text messages is made more interesting, given the agents involved. The Washington Post's Carol Leonnig has reported that some of the Secret Service functioned as Trump yes-men, noting that Tony Ornato temporarily left his Secret Service job to work as Deputy White House Chief of Staff, an unprecedented political assignment. The same Tony referenced by Cassidy Hutchinson. He and the other agent in the alleged SUV incident, Bobby Engel, have previously spoken to the committee. And while the Secret Service disputed some of the details of Hutchinson's retelling, the New York Times reports that the committee interviewed a Washington, D.C. Metro police officer who said Trump's departure from the Ellipse was delayed because of his anger over not being allowed to go to the Capitol, according to 2 people familiar with his testimony. Now, the officer wasn't in the SUV, but heard communications regarding the altercation and corroborated that the incident occurred. NBC News has not independently confirmed the account. Now, as for those deleted text messages, committee member Jamie Raskin said the committee will get to the bottom of their disappearance.
It's obviously an alarming thing to learn that there were Secret Service text messages from January 6th itself and also the day before that were deleted as part of a device replacement program. We don't know what the facts are, and we're going to get to the facts about why that happened, and we're going to do whatever we can to retrieve the substance of those texts.
Joining me now is Olivia Troy, former Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Advisor to Vice President Mike Pence, and Hugo Lowell, congressional reporter for The Guardian. And Hugo, I am going to go to you first. What do we know about the erasure of these text messages? Is it just from the 5th and the 6th? Because that sure does seem suspicious if it's just from those 2 days.
Well, so I caught up with the chairman of the committee today, Benny Thompson, and he said they weren't quite sure yet whether or not it was just January 5 and January 6 that they don't have the text from, or whether it was other dates in January. What they do know, though, is that those texts were lost through a device replacement program. Now, what we don't know, again, is whether or not this was malicious, or whether there was some sort of bad intent here to get rid of incriminating materials. But I learned today that the Select Committee met with the DHS Inspector General, and they discussed whether there was any way they could reconstruct these text messages based on the other text messages that they do have using forensic tools available to the FBI and federal law enforcement.
Do we know, like, how the text message sort of storage capacity works? Because, this is my phone. If you lose or you update the software in your phone, that doesn't get rid of your text messages. Your text messages are still there. They're in the cloud. They're somehow saved. You can retrieve them. Is there any reporting on, technologically, can they not just retrieve the actual text messages?
So when the Select Committee spoke to the DHS Inspector General today, what they learned was that the Secret Service is supposed to back up their text messages and their emails that are contained on those devices. It sounds like that the Secret Service agents in question didn't do that, and that, I believe, is statutory. There is a requirement internally for them to back these messages up, and they didn't do that. And so what happens is when you migrate to a new device, those messages may or may not be carried through, and at least a third of those Secret Service agents in question had already migrated to those new devices when the Inspector General requested all of these communications. So I think there are some elements of this which may have just been inadvertent or kind of like incompetence, but then there may also have been instances where perhaps it's a little bit more malicious.
Olivia, because this is a problem, right? Because, these are public records. These are, presidential level records. We know that the Secret Service was communicating with Trump about whether or not he was going to go to the Capitol. They've confirmed that. That's part of the testimony we've seen in January 6th, and that there was an upset on Trump's part that he wasn't going to go to the Capitol to do this unplanned, well, now we know, very much planned march to the Capitol with the, now we know, armed insurrectionists. Can you take us behind the scenes a little bit about these relationships? Because it does seem like Ornato and Engel had a, let's say, MAGA-like relationship to Trump.
Yeah, and look, it was certainly unusual to see a Secret Service person serving in such a political role in the White House. And I will tell you that those of us that work with Tony Ornato, we're well familiar with where his loyalties lie, and you don't get a position like that unless you are completely 100% loyal to Donald Trump. That's just a reality. Everybody who's worked in the White House knows that. And so I think this is just a very interesting scenario here that we have developing. Now, I guess we're 3 for 3, right? So, and by the way, we're still waiting for Tony Ornato. There's some of these accounts have been disputed, but I have yet to see Tony Ornato speak publicly about this or under oath about this and tell his version of the story that he has apparently been telling people. And he also has a history of apparently retracting the stories he tells people, as we've seen. So, and one thing I'll add on the technical thing, just to point out, I served as a lead person for a technical migration for the U.S. government. And there's one thing I can tell you, that maybe it's different at the Secret Service, but at the Department of Defense and in intelligence community organizations, which are the project that I led, we took great care not to lose data, to maintain the data, and it was very much made clear that we would plan very far ahead for any kind of migration like that to make sure that information wasn't lost. So I just find this entire thing baffling. I hope that we get to the facts of it, because I don't know how you delete or somehow migrate phones with information on them when you know that January 6th and the lead up to it was part of the biggest, darkest day of our country in a monumental event, knowing that there's an investigation likely to come, regardless of, the January 6th Select Committee. There would be accountability. There would be an investigation to figure out what happened in the national security apparatus, which we've discussed in the past, like was there a security failure? All of these things would happen, and you would want to maintain those records, which is why I find it just very suspect.
It is very suspect. And Hugo, this is the other question that is they're reporting on it, because the Secret Service is responsible for the physical movements of the president. The physical movements of the president are the subject not just of the January 6th committee hearings, but also of what appears to be a growing and much more active Department of Justice investigation. What he was physically doing actually matters potentially to legal cases. So is there any reporting on who could have authorized and allowed Secret Service to operate in a way that they were not backing up? Is there any, were they being held responsible for making sure that they had their communications? Because boy, is it convenient that we now cannot find out who might have been communicating in the Secret Service world when Mike Pence was saying, I'm not getting in the car with you guys, and when Donald Trump was saying, take me to the Capitol.
And that's precisely what the Select Committee has been saying all day behind closed doors and amongst themselves. I mean, they have really pinpointed on the fact that why is it that of all of the days that you could lose messages, why is it January 5 and January 6, two of perhaps the most key dates in this entire timeline leading up to the Capitol attack that you managed to lose? I mean, if you just think about for a minute, the kinds of messages and the kind of things that were going on in the White House on those 2 days. January 5, the Secret Service would likely have been finalizing plans and the security movements of the president and the vice president ahead of January 6. And then if you actually fast forward to January 6 itself, I mean, we both have in the kind of communications between the agents on Trump's security detail, trying to prevent him from going to the Capitol. And then we also have the communications of the vice president's security detail. Are they going to take him away from the Capitol complex? And, was there any communication between the vice president's detail and the president's detail and back to Trump? And these are all really key questions and really strike at the heart of what January 6th was all about. And the fact that these messages no longer seem to exist is very, very troubling.